Hello class, and welcome to Notes 5.5a, Solving Two-Step Equations. Our standards today are AF 1.1 and AF 4.1. How you're going to solve these two-step equations is you're going to do the inverse order of operations, which means you're going to switch it around. Normally we're using PEMDAS, and we end with multiplication, division, and then the final step is addition, subtraction. Today we're going to look at how we switch that around and we do addition, subtraction first and multiplication and division second. So you can see this little bean is walking backwards, and that's exactly what you're going to do. So let's take a look at teacher example 1, solving two-step equations. Solve the equation, check your solution. So if you take a look at our first problem, we have 2x minus 3 equals 5. We need to start by undoing any addition or subtraction that we see. So we've got the 2, which is being multiplied with the x, and the minus 3, which is obviously being subtracted. So let's go ahead and start by undoing minus 3, which of course the opposite of subtracting 3 would be adding 3 to both sides of the fence. Okay, so we go ahead, we put our fence in there first, we add 3 to both sides of the equation. These 3's here, of course, are going to cancel out, and we can bring this over here. So on the left side of the fence we are left with simply 2x, and on the right side 5 plus 3 is a. Now remember, we think of the x as that grumpy old neighbor. It's trying to get rid of everything that's around it. So we've gotten rid of the 3, but we still have the 2 on his side of the fence. So we need to move him, and of course when they're right next to each other like that, again we have that multiplication. So we need to turn that multiplication into division and divide both sides by 2. Once again, we're getting rid of the 2's, they are canceling out. And on the left side we're left with simply x all by his lonesome self. And on the right side we have 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Of course you do always want to check your solution. So let's go ahead, we've got our original problem. We want to plug in whatever we found for x, which in this case was 4, and then solve. 2 times 4, as we know, is 8, and 8 minus 3 is 5. So 5 does equal 5, our solution checks. Problem B, 5x plus 1 equals 26. I want to again begin with drawing my fence. Now, I see I've got addition. I want to undo that addition because again, we do addition or subtraction first before going on to any multiplication or division. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. The ones on the left side of our fence cancel out. And on the right side, we have 26 minus 1, which is simply 25. Now we have the 5 right next to the x, which means multiplication. So I want to undo that multiplication again with division, dividing both sides by 5. My 5's cancel out on the left side, and I'm left with simply x. On the right side, I have 25 divided by 5, which is 5. Now I can plug these into my check. Instead of writing x, I'm going to write my solution for x, which was 5, and then I can multiply. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. Okay, go ahead and try some of these out on your own. Take a look at these two problems. Solve the equation. Make sure you also check your solution. Remember, on number 1, the first thing you see is addition, so you need to undo that addition. On problem 2, the first thing you see is subtraction, so you need to undo that subtraction. Okay, go ahead and get started. Okay, let's take a look at your solutions and see how you did. We're going to start by subtracting the 7 on both sides, leaving us with 2x equals 3. Divide both sides by 2, and we'll end up with x equals 1 and 1/2 as a fraction, or 1 5/10 as a decimal. Problem number 2, again we want to start with that subtracting 8. So the opposite of subtracting 8, since we're doing inverse operations, we're doing the reverse order of operations. We need to add 8 to both sides, leaving us with 3x equals 21. Divide each side by 3, and we end up with x equals 7. Make sure you do also check both solutions by plugging them back in for the x and solving. Okay, Let's go on to the next teacher example. Solve with a variable in the numerator. So, as you can see here, we've got a division problem, x over 5, which as we know also means x divided by 5. So let's go ahead and I'll put my fence in here. And I want to start, of course, undoing any addition or subtraction that I see, which right here I have minus 11. So I want to add 11 to both sides. These 11s cancel out. And on the left side, I'm left with x over 5, or x divided by 5. On the right side, I'm left with 15. Now, I want to undo that division by doing the opposite, which is going to be multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. Notice you can use the dot, you can use the asterisk, either one will work. You just do not want to use an x because it will confuse you with this x here. These 5's cancel out and we're left with just x on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we've got 15 times 5, and we're left with 75. When I plug 75 in for my check, I'm going to start with 75 divided by 5, and I'll get 15, and then 15 minus 11, which is 4. So my solution does check out. Okay, go ahead and solve these problems here. Again, same idea. You are going to undo that division with multiplication. A warning on number 3, remember this 10 does not have a sign in front of it, so you can put a plus or a positive sign in front of it. Go ahead and pause, solve your problems, make sure you check, and then press play when you would like to see the solutions. Okay, welcome back. Let's go ahead and start first with drawing your fence, which hopefully you remembered to do. Subtracting 10 on both sides. This 17 minus 10 will give you 7. These 10's here will cancel out, and you're left with a over 2. The opposite of a divided by 2 would be multiplying both sides by 2. And our final answer is 14 equals a. When I plug that in to my check, I replace a with 14, and I have 14 divided by 2 is 7. 10 plus 7 is 17, so my solution checks. Problem number 4, y over 3 minus 1 equals 8. So I'm going to start by adding 1 to both sides. And then I'm going to have y over 3 equals 9. Multiply each side by 3. And my final answer is y equals 27. Go ahead and check my solution. 27 divided by 3 is 9, minus 1 is 8. So my solution does check out. Final teacher example, solving with a negative coefficient. So notice the 18 does not have a sign in front of it, so that's like an addition sign. And we do have a subtraction sign here. Notice the 4 and the x are right next to each other, which means I'm going to be doing multiplication. Now remember, we talked about our terms. The sign in front of it goes with them, so this subtraction sign needs to stay with the 4. So you can skip change to turn it into a negative so that it stays with that 4. Now I can subtract 18 from both sides since that 18 was positive. The opposite of positive would be negative or subtraction. I end up with negative 12 equals negative 4x. And of course I divide both sides by negative 4. My socks match, so my negatives cancel out, and I end up with positive 3. When I check my solution, I plug that positive 3 in for x. 4 times 3 is 12, and 18 minus 12 is 6, so my solution does check. You may want to review that one more time. It is a little tricky. The only extra step we're adding is that skip change in the beginning. You can do this every time if you want, or only when it is a coefficient, meaning a number in front of a variable. So go ahead and try these two out on your own. Notice you need to skip change so this negative stays with the 8. Skip change on this one as well so the negative stays with the 3. Go ahead and pause the video, press play when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, let's take a look. You're going to start, of course, drawing your fence, which I will put on here. Skip skip, change, made it 5 plus negative 8x. Subtract 5 on both sides. These 5's cancel out. You're left with negative 8x. And here, 29 minus 5 is 24. Divide both sides by negative 8, and I'm left with x equals negative 3. Problem number 6, same idea. I bring in my fence. I need to skip, change. Notice there's no sign in front of the 11, which tells you it's addition, so we need to subtract 11 on both sides. Notice I've got 2 minus 11, so that tells me I'm going to get a negative number, which would be negative 9. Then I can divide each side by negative 3, and I end up with positive 3 because my negatives canceled out. Okay, go ahead and go on to our quiz for 5.5a. Solve the equation. I do also recommend you check your solution. So be careful on number 1, you want to start with undoing that subtraction. Problem 2, you want to undo the addition. And problem 3, you also want to undo the addition. Keep in mind to watch out for this negative coefficient in front of the 5. Okay, have a great day.